Good evening. President Trump went on a Twitter rampage over the weekend, and it continued today. He said a lot of things that simply are not true, and we'll talk about that. We do it because, obviously, he's the president of the United States, because what a president says matters still, and whether those statements can be trusted, well, that certainly matters. But keeping them honest, beyond just their raw factuality or the lack of it, is what all these tweets reveal about the thinking of the most powerful man in the world and his priorities, and some would argue his humanity. You can certainly draw your own conclusions about that. Not far from Mar-a-Lago, there were funerals today for Luke Hoyer and Elena Petty. He was 15, she was just 14, both students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland. Two classmates will be laid to rest tomorrow, and funerals continue throughout the week. The president tweeted and played golf today, a day that saw two families bury their children. He did not mention them in his tweets. He tweeted yesterday. Teacher Scott Beagle's funeral was yesterday. The president did not mention him either. Nor did he mention the funeral for Alyssa Alhadeff, 14 years old, when he tweeted on Friday. He tweeted Saturday and did mention the shooting, but not, as you'll see, in the kind of way that might be even remotely comforting to anyone, which is odd because if you listen to his words in the immediate wake of the killings, words prepared for him and read off a teleprompter, he made the following promise.
To every parent, teacher, and child who is hurting so badly, we are here for you, whatever you need, whatever we can do to ease your pain.
We are here for you, he said, whatever you can do, whatever we can do to ease your pain. Teleprompter Trump certainly sounds like someone attempting to be what all presidents ultimately are in difficult times, a consoler in chief. Contrast that with Twitter Trump Saturday night. Quote, very sad that the FBI missed all of the many signals sent out by the Florida school shooter. This is not acceptable. They are spending too much time trying to prove Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. There is no collusion. Get back to the basics and make us all proud. Now, for anyone still waiting for the president to pivot, that's a pivot away from the murder of 17 people to himself. We talked on Friday about how the president's response to the indictment of 13 Russian nationals and 3 Russian organizations had nothing to do with defending the country from a hostile act and everything to do with defending himself. Saturday night, he enlisted 17 murder victims in that cause. He made that tweet everything about himself and nothing about those 17 lives. And on top of that, he's factually off base. About 35,000 people work for the FBI. Only a relative handful of bureau personnel are assisting Special Counsel Mueller's Russia probe. This was not his only factually challenged tweet. It wasn't his only tweet that was centered on himself at the cost of others, even his own senior advisors. I want to just quickly take them in order. Saturday afternoon, talking about the indictments, quote, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein stated at the news conference, there is no allegation in the indictment that any American was a knowing participant in this illegal activity. There is no allegation in the indictment that the charged conduct altered the outcome of the 2016 election. Well, keeping him honest, the Deputy Attorney General did take great care several times during his Friday press conference to use the words in this indictment, which also, as you'll recall, named, quote, persons known and unknown to the grand jury. Both suggest more to come. And Rosenstein himself made it clear the probe is ongoing. As for proving there was no collusion with Russians, which the president has also been denying online, the indictment says nothing one way or another about that. Also, Saturday afternoon, there was this, quote, funny how the fake news media doesn't want to say that the Russian group was formed in 2014, long before my run for president. Maybe they knew I was going to run, even though I didn't know. Well, it is true the indictment's timeline does begin before Mr. Trump announced his candidacy in 2014, but keeping him honest, that was widely reported. It wasn't ignored at all. Furthermore, the document also clearly states that by the time candidate Trump was the nominee, the Russian effort was to hurt Hillary Clinton and help him online and on the ground. By Saturday night, he was tweeting again. There was, as you saw, the tweet using the 17 Parkland victims to make his point about Russia, and then he lashed out at his own national security advisor for saying this at the Munich Security Conference.
As you can see with the FBI indictment, the evidence is now really incontrovertible and available in the public domain, whereas in the past it was difficult to attribute for a couple of reasons. First, technically it was difficult. But then also you didn't want to divulge your intelligence capabilities. But now that this is in the arena of a law enforcement investigation, it's going to be very apparent to everyone.
Well, apparent except to the president, who tweeted this out. General McMaster forgot to say that the results of the 2016 election were not impacted or changed by the Russians, and that the only collusion was between Russia and crooked Hillary, the DNC, and the Dems. Remember the dirty dossier, uranium, speeches, emails, and the Podesta company. And that's far from true as well. We do not know whether the Russian effort affected the outcome. What we do know is the indictment lays out a clear intent to and a large, diversified, and remarkably sophisticated effort to, including helping third-party candidates trying to suppress the minority vote, fake rallies, the works. Yesterday, the president was falsely suggesting the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee was blaming it all on the last president. His tweet, "Little Adam Schiff, the leaking monster of no control, is now blaming the Obama administration for Russian meddling in the 2016 election. He's finally right about something. Obama was president, knew of the threat, and did nothing. Thank you, Adam." Well, keeping him honest, yet again, here's what Congressman Schiff actually said.
We should have called them out much earlier. While I respect the motive in terms of the Obama administration, they didn't want to be seen as meddling. The American people had a right to know what was going on and could be trusted to do the right thing with it, and they should have defended being more public and aggressive at the time, at least in my view.
Now, it's a completely fair point to debate whether the Obama administration did enough or not, but it's simply untrue to say they did nothing, as the president has. The intelligence community weighed the evidence, came to a consensus. The president ordered the closing of 2 Russian facilities in this country and the expulsion of Russian personnel. He also tried to get Congress to act, but was blocked. He confronted Vladimir Putin face-to-face, and President-elect Trump was briefed on all of this. All of those things were reported at the time on cable news, which the president watches obsessively, even though he pretends he doesn't. Also, the president tries to suggest he never really downplayed the Russian threat. Quote, "I never said Russia did not meddle in the election. I said it may be Russia or China or another country or group, or it may be a 400-pound genius sitting in bed and playing with his computer. The Russian hoax was that the Trump campaign colluded with Russia. It never did." Well, here's what he actually said aboard Air Force One last fall, recounting a conversation with Vladimir Putin. "Every time he sees me, he says, 'I didn't do that.' And I really believe that when he tells me that, he means it. But he says, 'I didn't do that.' And then you hear it's 17 agencies, meaning the intelligence community. Well, it's 3, and 1 is Brennan, and 1 is whatever. I mean, give me a break. They're political hacks." Now, you can decide for yourself if he downplayed the threat there. The president continued to tweet about Russia throughout the day yesterday. Also tweeted about NASCAR, new polling he liked, an interview he watched of Oprah, even though he supposedly doesn't watch much TV. He called her insecure, by the way. This morning, he tweeted, quote, "Have a great but very reflective President's Day," and then he went to play golf while they held funerals for 2 teenagers nearby.